Welcome back to another video. Today, this is going to be a more chill video. I'm just going to sit down and talk like I've never done this before, right? Because I wanted to open up the discussion about a topic that I've been seeing on Twitter lately. I don't know if this is a big discussion because I barely use that shit, but it has been popping up a lot on my feed. And so I wanted to talk about this and maybe open up a discussion. If you're watching this video, I'd like to know your opinion at the end, okay? So basically, today's discussion is about the usage of old characters in new content in Wuthering Waves. But before I give my opinion here, let's just take a look at our current point, okay? So currently in Wuthering Waves, if you play, for example, 1.0, or if you've experienced 1.0 during launch, the only characters that we see normally in the story are the Overseers, right? And that is Frolova and Scar. After 1.0, we have not seen too much of the older characters, like Chisha, for example, like Yang Yang, like Jian. Anything around these characters is like basically non-existent. Even more recent patches like 1.3, we have not seen shit about even Alto, even Camellia, even Shorekeeper. We have not seen anything about them at all since 2.0. And I understand why Guru does this. If you have Jian and there's a Jian story quest or Jian in an event, you're not gonna pull for him, right? It doesn't make sense that you pull for a character that you already have if you don't need his sequence nodes, right? So by doing that, by concentrating effort in a character that people already have, it will not generate as much revenue as, for example, doing an event with, I don't know, Augusta, Dolbrana when she launches, right? It makes sense, but at the same time, I believe this way of writing stories kind of breaks the world being created because it feels fragmented, right? It feels like every story is like a small contained space that barely interacts with the world outside of the specific quest. Am I saying that no characters interact whatsoever, no older characters interact with new shit? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's very rare and that makes every story a contained experience instead of feeling like a full developing living world where people are doing shit. If you just like people disappear after the quests. And, I think that creating this dynamic where we can have access to every character in the story is great, because using as an example another gacha game, Nikkei, if you've ever played, you know what I'm talking about. We have contact with older characters, and that leads to us getting this new character that released today that needs help with something, and we take them to this older character that we've seen like chapter 2 that knows how to solve this problem, and then we go from there. This creates this dynamic where the world feels like things are actually going on, it's living, it's breathing, people are moving, are working, and it feels more joined. It feels like the world is not fragmented between different quests, because generally when you're trying to create a world, that's what you're aiming for, right? But now there's a counterpoint to that, and it's more my opinion, right? Though I agree that yes, we need older characters' presences in Wuthering Waves, having them just for the sake of having is not good. What do I mean by that? Let's say, for example, the hunt. We're going to go in 2.6 with Augusta. If we go there and, for example, Lupa decides to show up at some point, great. But like, imagine we're going for the hunt and Alto appears, Camellia appears, Yang Yang, like what the fuck they're gonna do? So just having the characters thrown up in the story, like dangling keys, oh, here's this character, you like this character, huh? Like, it's not good, right? What I think should be done is, for example, let's just say after Septimon ends, after this entire Renacita arc ends, we're going back to the Huanglong area to find another city. And maybe to find this other city, other area we need to go to, we talk to our old roster, right? We need Yang Yang's help, we need Chisha, we need Jinshi, Jian maybe, Yiling. Maybe we could use their help, right? You see, this is an introduction that makes sense, right? Having these characters in this point makes sense. Because let's be honest, there's no reason for like Jinshi to be in Renacita. What is she gonna do there? And I'm not talking about story quests only, right? If I recall correctly, in 2.6, we're gonna go back to Huanglong for that simulated universe things where we have to find the bugs. right? I believe it's going to be in Hualong. So there, it would make sense. Any dialogue, any cutscene, anything that's going to happen there, it would make sense. And I want to see the old roster there, right? The same thing, if we have an event that's going to be taking place at the Black Shores, it makes sense that we're going to see the Black Shores characters there, right? Because they live there. So it makes sense, right? But like having a Black Shores centered event and suddenly seeing Lupa makes no fucking sense. Seeing Cartethia makes sense because she's there now. So kind of condensing my point, because I feel like it's all over the place. I believe this is one of the biggest flaws Wu's narrative has, because it fragments the world, right? But I also don't want to see the solution being just slapping around like Yang Yang and whatever the fuck we're doing currently and call it a day, because it also doesn't make sense. So overall, I just want to see new characters and old characters feel like they live in the same world and do things, and also revisit the old cast. For example, I love Alto, I love Junshin, Jinshi, Yang Yang, and I don't see these characters anymore. You know, a fun fact to know about me is that the first Carlotta banner, I actually pulled only her guns to give them to Alto. That's how much I love the guy. So not seeing him ever again is kind of fucked. So old characters should be back in story, not only for the surprise factor, like, oh, we're seeing Alto again, but in a way that it makes sense and it actually feels like it makes sense with the character's characterization. And I think this is especially important point right now, because I feel like there's been a lot of character releases since 2.0, right? A lot of new characters. I'm not complaining about that, but there's been a lot of characters, and having these characters only be relevant during the story quests where their banners take place and never again, it feels kind of iffy. You know, it feels weird, and it gives less reason for people to even attach to the character, because why will I love, for example, Camellia, if the last content we've seen of Camellia is 1.3? If you ignore the cube event, you see, it was a nice touch to see Scar again. You won't see anyone complaining about that. And I also want to see not only Scar, but the other characters as well coming back, because a lot of these characters have great personalities, have great voice lines. They are really well characterized in the universe, right? But that only applies to the patch that they're in and nowhere else. So it would be great to see more of the characters that people already like, more of the characters that people may like. You never know, so someone may not like Gian during 1.0, and a different quest where he's helping us doing something maybe make them like Gian. Will it sell? No, not that much, but it would bring more immersion. It would bring more of the emotional commitment of the player to the game, because as it is right now, it's kind of too fragmented to feel like a breathing world. And you know, I say this loving the game. You guys know that I love this fucking game. That's why this channel is basically 90% of fucking Wuthering Waves. I love this game, but even then, I feel like it feels fragmented. The world building is good, the story writing is good, the storytelling is amazing, but it feels too contained to be a full world. So those were my initial thoughts on this matter. I tried to make this video as structured as I could, but I'm bad at writing scripts, so it may sound all over the place. So if you need clarification, or if you need me to explain anything I said better, please ask me in the comments and I will expand my points. And also, I want to hear your thoughts on the matter. Do you think there should be more old characters, less? If they should be present only in events, only in story quests? Please let me know your thoughts about this discussion. Let's keep it civil, and I'll see you soon. Mwah.